Cars of the future are already here, but for whatever reason, the sneaky companies have kept them under wraps. That is, until now. These lightning-quick, super sleek cars have never made it to the production line and, for the moment, remain nothing more than a dream. Although that could very well change sooner than we realize. We could be behind the wheel of a self-healing Lambo, top-secret Bugatti, or a roaring hypercar cleverly disguised as a humble city car. Buckle up, because you're about to discover the secret world of sports cars. It has a striking design, a truly gorgeous interior, and a unique powertrain setup, and yet the bosses over at Bugatti have kept this beautiful car a secret from the rest of the world, until now. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Bugatti Atlantic, a car that almost took the automotive industry by storm. The design of the Atlantic pays homage to the iconic Type 57, since that touring car was produced in the mid-late 1930s, which is way before our time. We'll refresh your memory. See that noticeable center line down the middle of the Atlantic? That's the visual connection they were going for. Under the hood, the Atlantic would have been powered by either a twin-turbocharged V8 engine or 4 electric motors. On the outside, its door-opening mechanisms are something to marvel at, while its interior isn't too different from the infamous, now record-breaking Chiron, although the Atlantic wouldn't have been anywhere near as expensive. Anyway, why was this top-notch car never produced? Long story short is that Bugatti was forced to put a number of projects on hold when the Volkswagen Dieselgate scandal made the news. For anyone who doesn't understand how those things possibly relate, Volkswagen Group actually owns Bugatti, as well as Audi, Bentley, Lamborghini, and Porsche. Alright, hands up, who here is a fan of Transformers? The world in these films seems like something from the year 3000, but in reality, we're much closer to having real-life Transformers roaming our streets. Cast your eye to the Renault MorphOS, a unique SUV sedan crossover that's about to make one heck of a mark on the industry. Usually, the term crossover refers to a middle ground between two distinct types, but for the Renault MorphOS, it's a different story. As an SUV sedan crossover, it can be both of them at the flick of a switch. Yeah, that's right, the car literally can change its physical dimensions whenever the driver feels like it. In one mode, it's a physically shorter city-style car. It's easier to park and more economical, at 4.4 meters or 14.4 feet long with a 2.7 meter or 8.8 feet wheelbase. In the other stretched-out mode, it becomes physically longer, suited to traveling increased distances with extra legroom and storage. Renault is calling it travel mode, but we think it feels more like road trip mode. When activated, the wheelbase extends up to 2.9 meters or 9.5 feet, and the length grows to 4.8 meters or 15.7 feet. Unfortunately, we're still waiting for this never-before-seen technology to actually be implemented to become available to everyday Joe Schmoes. If you thought that real-life Transformers were cool, wait till you see what Lamborghini's got in store. This piece of automobile art you see before you is the Lamborghini Terzo Milenio. If you ask the folks at Lambo, they'll say this estimated $2.5 million ride is the sports car of the future, and honestly, it's hard to disagree with that. Here's why. Aside from the hybrid supercar boasting both an electric motor that produces 625 kilowatts and a 6.5-liter V12 engine that produces around 838 horsepower, it has one particular exterior feature that no other car can even dream of. The Terzo Milenio, believe it or not, is self-healing. Huh? Don't worry, we'll explain. The car has a 100% carbon fiber body that is built with what we call nanotubes. If any of the inbuilt sensors pick up a crack or a dent in the body, the nanotubes get to work and buff it out in a jiffy. Cool, right? Like most Lambos these days, the Hush Hush Terzo has a flat, lean, windswept design, plus the brand's trademark Y taillights. And of course, one heck of a reputation. But since this is still just a concept, Lambo has been very selective about the info it's shared. Self-repairing cars, cars that can climb stairs, and even $10 million futuristic cars are all on display in one of our other videos. The link's in the description. Check it out after this one. Next up, a vehicle with supercar-like performance hiding in an everyday driving car. This is the 2021 Porsche 911 Turbo S, and while it hasn't been made yet, We're keeping our fingers crossed that one day it will be, and then we'll be able to drive it off into the sunset. According to Porsche, this bad boy would be able to pump out 640 horsepower and 590 pound-feet of torque from its 3.8-liter twin-turbocharged flat-six engine. So what does that mean? It means that it's got hypercar power without a hypercar brand or hypercar price tag. Able to sprint up to 60 miles per hour in just 2.6 seconds. That time, by the way, is 0.2 seconds faster than its 911 predecessor's best time. See, not such a subtle city car after all. If all goes according to plan and the Turbo S does, in fact, get made, then expect to fork out around $204,850 for one. For decades, Ferrari has produced industry-leading supercars with a reputation as glorified as any. This piece of magnificence you see before you, unfortunately, never made it off the shelf. It's the Ferrari F80, and sadly, it's nothing more than a forgotten concept. The daring machine would have been capable of generating 1,200 horsepower, thanks to its twin-turbo V8 engine. It would have edged out the Porsche we just saw with ease, rocketing from 0 to 62 miles per hour in a mere 2.2 seconds, and then topping out at 310 miles per hour. To put that into perspective, the world's current fastest car, the Bugatti Chiron, has topped out at just 304. Buyers were expecting to shell out at least $2.2 million, but they never got the chance. What do you think of its look? Let us know in the comments. Alright, quick question for the Bugatti fans out there. What's more attractive than the thought of cruising down the street in a roaring Veyron? For us, it's doing exactly the same thing, with the roof down, hair blown in the wind. Believe it or not, but that was almost a beautiful reality. Cast your eye towards the roofless Bugatti Veyron Barchetta. What are your initial thoughts on its design? So this roofless vehicle was the brainchild of Achim Anschiet, the head of Bugatti's design department back in 2008. The idea behind this secret sports car was to take the Veyron Grand Sports Vitesse, that's this guy, and then slap on new bodywork and a wicked wraparound windshield, similar to what we've seen in the Speedster. While most would say that it's marvelously designed and deserved to be made, the big bosses weren't prepared to launch a model with such limited production numbers. I know, it's devastating. Next up, we've got the Apollo Aero, a two-seater car that could have been oh so good, but instead was left to settle in the design room and gather nothing but dust. It was originally introduced in 2016 at the Geneva Motor Show and had a number of noteworthy features that got the automotive world intrigued. We're talking features like a 0 to 62 time of 2.9 seconds, a 224 mile per hour top speed, and a twin-turbo 4-liter Audi V8 engine under the hood that churned out 986 brake horsepower. But the most interesting factor, obviously, was the beast-like brutish design. True story, the Aero's aesthetic was actually inspired by the F-22 Raptor stealth fighter jet, as well as sharks, and basically anything that tears things apart for a living. The company had a target weight of under 1,300 kilograms or 2,866 pounds for the final production vehicle, which would have made it one of the lightest supercars on the market at the time. On top of that, they also intended for it to be one of the cheapest, costing less than 1 million euros, or $1.1 million US. Evidently, they bit off a little more than they could chew. We're winding the clock back even further for our next almost revolutionary vehicle, although by looking at the Volkswagen W12 Nardo, you'd never guess that when it all started out as a concept, it was 1997. Back then, it started off as the W12 Synchro, but by 2001, the project had transformed into the Nardo. If you're wondering what on earth is a Nardo, it's the name of a high-speed test track in Italy, on which a car broke the speed record. Yeah, 0 to 62 miles per hour in just 3.5 seconds at a top speed of 221.8 miles per hour. After 24 hours of driving around in circles, it covered 4,809 miles, or 7,740 kilometers, at an average of over 200 miles an hour. Anyone else dizzy? Anyway, what happened to the sleek Nardo? Well, Volkswagen decided to abandon the project to focus instead on another car. Which one? The Bugatti Veyron. In hindsight, it doesn't seem like such a bad move. On the other hand, many would say that the fact that our next car was not produced was a bad move. This is the hybrid electric two-seater Jaguar CX75, commonly touted as the greatest car to never make it to market. Back in 2010, Jaguar had a wild idea: use diesel-powered jet engines to energize batteries that powered 4 electric motors. Seriously, what could go wrong with jet engines? At the end of the day, however, Jaguar simply didn't think that the car would sell enough models to make its production worthwhile. With estimated price figures between $700,000 to £900,000, which is about $844,000 to $1.85 million, it would have been significantly more expensive than pretty much all other Jaguars ever to be put on the market. Still, considering the fact that it was a limited production concept developed in a partnership with the Williams Formula One team, we think it would have made a pretty big splash. Speaking of Formula One, you'd think that using actual F1 technology in suburban streets would be a terrible idea, right? Well, turns out that that's exactly what Mercedes was planning on doing. This is the Mercedes AMG One, perhaps the most ambitious car that you'll come across today. The company's aim with this under-the-radar vehicle was to create a street-legal car with the mechanics of a genuine racer. Not so easy. It was a monumental challenge for engineers to keep the 1.6-liter hybrid-assisted engine at its proposed 1,000 horsepower level while adhering to all the legal mumbo-jumbo. Nevertheless, this car was still very much in the maybe pile, so while we suggest not holding your breath, we may very well see this hit the streets sooner rather than later. All right, folks, share your thoughts in the comments. Which car would you most love to see released to the general public? Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to receive notifications, and thanks for checking out The Richest. We'll see you next time.